Hello and welcome to the Midnight Cut. And today, on the second episode, we are going to talk about Beyond the Black Rainbow. Beyond the Black Rainbow is not merely a film, it is an artifact from an alternate dimension of cinema. Released in 2010, Panos Cosmatos' directorial debut exists as a defiantly non narrative, sensorial assault that synthesizes the aesthetic residues of late 70s and early 80s science fiction horror and experimental film into a potent hypnotic tone poem. To analyze it is to attempt to dissect a dream, or more accurately, a nightmare recalled in the cold sweat of waking. It is a work that prioritizes mood, texture, and thematic resonance over plot and character, demanding a form of spectator surrender not unlike the state its protagonist endures. This analysis will explore the film's construction of a retro-futuristic dystopia, its use of audiovisual hypnosis, its deep thematic preoccupations with failed utopias and fractured psyches, and its significant, if niche, place in contemporary cult cinema. The world of Beyond the Black Rainbow is its most complete and compelling character. Cosmatos, along with cinematographer Norm Lee and production designer, constructs a universe that feels simultaneously familiar and utterly alien, a feat achieved through a meticulously crafted retro future. The Arborea Institute is housed within a geodesic dome, an architectural form heavily associated with the utopian futurism of visionaries like Buckminster Fuller. It symbolizes a harmonious, efficient, and enlightened future. Here, that symbol is inverted. The dome is not a greenhouse for growth, but a sterile, hermetic tomb. Its interiors are a labyrinth of stark, minimalist corridors, obsidian black therapy rooms, and living spaces washed in cold, clinical light. This visual design directly critiques the corruption of 1960s countercultural idealism. The dream of a new age of consciousness has curdled into a controlled, institutionalized, and ultimately sadistic environment. The technology reinforces this. Chunky monitors, blinking analog consoles, cathode ray tube displays, and the menacing insect like psychoactivator helmet. This is not a sleek digital future, but a future imagined through the heavy, tangible, and ominous technology of the early 1980s, a future that feels both outdated and newly terrifying. Normally, cinematography is painterly in its composition and deliberate in its pace. The frame is often static, holding on empty corridors or faces for uncomfortably long durations, forcing the viewer to marinate in the atmosphere. The color palette is relentlessly oppressive and symbolic. Vast fields of icky blackness are punctuated by searing, saturated neons, the lurid red of warning lights or blood, the cold blue of monitor glow, the toxic yellow of certain liquids. Elena's world is often monochromatic, the blinding white of her cell, the grey of her smock symbolizing her erased identity. In contrast, Dr. Nile exists in a world of deep burgundy, wood paneling, and golden hued flashbacks, signifying a corrupted, nostalgic, and inwardly rotting psyche. The use of smoke, haze, and lens flares adds a layer of drugged, unreal texture, blurring the line between reality, memory, and psychic projection. The film's glacial pacing is arguably its most divisive feature and its most essential tool. This is not a film about events, but about a condition. The long, unbroken takes, the extended sequences of characters simply moving through spaces, and the paucity of dialogue creates a temporal experience that mirrors Elena's captive existence. Time is viscous, oppressive, and seemingly endless. For the viewer, this induces a state of heightened awareness and mounting anxiety. The slow pace becomes a form of sensory deprivation in itself, making the eventual bursts of violence, the Sentinel's attack, Elena's escape, Niall's final transformation feel seismic and cathartic. It is a radical rejection of conventional cinematic grammar, insisting that the feeling of entrapment is the story. If the visuals construct the prison, Jeremy Schmidt's monumental score provides the air within it, thick, pressurized, and intoxicating. The soundtrack is the film's nervous system, deeply indebted to Berlin's School of Electronic Music and the scores of John Carpenter and Giorgio Moroder. Schmidt's compositions are built on analog synthesizers, pulsating sequencer patterns, and haunting wordless choirs. The score externalizes the internal state of the characters, Elena's latent power, Niall's fracturing sanity, the Institute's mechanized cruelty. It is cosmic, melancholic, and deeply menacing, crafting a soundscape that feels both vintage and timelessly eerie. The film masterfully uses the contrast between score, diegetic sound, and silence. The hum of machinery, the click of a tape recorder, the distorted mutterings of Dr. Arboria on videotape. These sounds ground the nightmare in a tangible, if bizarre, reality. Conversely, the moments of near silence, such as Elena's telekinetic acts or her wanderings, are profoundly unsettling, emphasizing her isolation. The most powerful auditory moment may be the abrupt cut to diegetic sound during Elena's escape into the night. The sudden absence of the all encompassing synth score is jarring, signifying her first contact with a world outside the Institute's controlled audiovisual sphere. Beneath its stunning surface, Beyond the Black Rainbow is a film rich with thematic concerns presented not through exposition but through symbol and sensation. The film's core tragedy is the failure of a utopian project. Through archived promotional videos, we learn of Dr. Mercurio Arboria. He speaks of transcending the black rainbow of pain and suffering to achieve a benign delirium. His institute promised happiness through chemical and psychological enlightenment. By 1983, Arboria is gone, and his legacy is in the hands of Barry Nile, who represents the monstrous endpoint of this philosophy. The pursuit of bliss has led not to transcendence, but to dissociation, narcissism, and utter psychic ruin. The therapy is torture, the enlightenment is solipsism. The institute is no longer a commune but a for profit prison, mirroring the co option of 60s idealism by the commodified, self obsessed culture of the 80s. Michael Rogers' performance as Dr. Nile is masterclass in repressed pathology. He is the film's most complex figure, not a simple villain, but a victim of the very ideology he enforces. His traumatic exposure to the alpha and omega of Black Rainbow has split his psyche. He maintains a veneer of controlled, oily professionalism, but it cracks to reveal bottomless wells of rage, self loathing, and a childlike vulnerability. His obsession with Elena is multifaceted. She is a test subject, a mirror of his own lost innocence, a vessel for his projected self hatred, and the only remaining connection to Arboria's promise. Elena is largely a silent, reactive presence, yet she is the film's emotional and moral core. She represents a pre-linguistic, instinctual state of being. Drugged and controlled, her journey is not one of acquiring knowledge or power, but of reclaiming her innate feral will to survive. Her psychic abilities are not scientific marvels, but expressions of this primal self. Her escape is not a clever plotted breakout, but a slow stumbling awakening, driven by instinct and catalyzed by trauma. The film arrived at the forefront of a cultural wave fascinated with the eerie, lost future aesthetics of the late 20th century, a concept sometimes called hauntology. It perfectly captures the feeling of a future that was promised but never arrived, leaving behind only its ghostly, often sinister residues. Its aesthetic directly influenced the visual and sonic language of subsequent works, from the synthwave music scene to shows like Stranger Things and films like The Void and Mandy. Beyond the Black Rainbow endures because it is an act of pure cinematic alchemy. Panos Cosmatos took the base metals of his childhood memories of video store box art, late night cable movie fragments, and the ominous promise of retro-futurism and transmuted them into a dark, shimmering, and unique work of art. It is a eulogy for a future that failed, played on a broken synthesizer. It is a challenging, frustrating, and utterly mesmerizing experience that refuses to cater to convention. It is an experience that requires a specific mindset, a willingness to be passively overwhelmed rather than actively entertained. It is a film to be felt in the body, the dread in the stomach, the tension in the shoulders, the hypnosis of the flickering light and pulsing sound. If you liked this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more content, stay tuned.